don't really have an introduction slide like Dabs, so I'm just going to get straight into it. Anyone can be a developer. I've given this talk before and talked a lot about psychology and a lot about myself. So today I'm going to trim down my backstory and open with the most important message, which is people can and should enter web development regardless of their discipline. I think this would help steer the web in a good direction, and I'll explain why later on. So, I want to show you a few quick slides. This is Sean Smith. He went from working at a gym to becoming a software engineer in 12 months. Some people do it in 6 months, 3 months, 2 months. Now anyone can learn to code. Hands up, who has read a few of these articles? Yeah, some people. Keep your hands up if you've ever thought, well, that sounds pretty damn exciting. Okay, a few people, good. So, Throwback. Who can make a really good rewinding noise? Yes. And stop. So we're back in the year 2000, and this is when I made my first ever website, which was all about cats. Ever since then, I've done a bunch of stuff. Got a master's degree in psychology, done loads of traveling, and had a really amazing time, but I wasn't enjoying my work in psychology. About a year and a half ago, I moved to Brighton, and having read many of the previous articles, I reached out to CodeBar, where I was able to learn about web development in a really, really fantastic environment. It opened me up to the incredible, supportive, and fun community around me in Brighton. And it's ultimately what made me decide and gave me the confidence to pursue web development and play. And today I have an internship in a web design agency. The time between my first CodeBar meeting and getting my internship was just 9 months. I hopped onto the fast-moving train of the web from a different background and with relatively little experience, just like lots of other people do. It was really, really exciting, but it's also really hard. I think that some of us might not realize the tougher parts of the job until we're there. Like the need to collaborate really well with our team and clients, to not always do tasks that excite us, or becoming exhausted from keeping up with the pace of technological change. So what has all this got to do with me working in psychology? Since I started to learn about web development, there's been times where I felt really uninspired. And this bugged me. I noticed ways that studying and working in psychology are often in parallel to working in web development. And drawing on these parallels actually really helped me to stay inspired through these tough times where I felt that I wasn't cut out to be a developer. Who has ever felt imposter syndrome in their job? Yeah, more people. People who don't have their hands up, be a bit more honest next time. Here are some of the similarities that I came up with between psychology and web development. They work best user or people-centered. They work great with good communication. They have multidisciplinary teams. they can be emotionally draining, and they have the power to delight people. To explain how these similarities have inspired me as a developer, I want to talk about these three things. I'm going to use the term users to describe both the customers of psychology and of web development. Firstly, empathy. I think this is difficult to define without seeing how it's done, and I want to talk about it in three contexts. The first is having empathy for users. Those of us working in psychology think of end users all the time, their experience and their happiness and their long-term well-being. Psychologists are user-centric, and it's kind of the whole point behind the job. And some of you might think that this is the point of a web developer's job as well. In psychology, I always had direct contact with every end user, which was great. It meant I was able to see things from their perspectives and to think not just of them, but like them as well. Hearing their stories and finding out what made them tick really allowed me to go above and beyond in my care for them, and even a tiny bit more effort on my part would cause like a massive increase in their well-being, which was a really nice thing to see. Second is empathy for teams. Over 8 years, I worked in loads of different psychology teams, and they were all multidisciplinary like this. This is just a few. This is a small team. Some of the teams were awful. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of negativity, and this kind of twisted and coiled its way through the team and made everybody really demotivated. And some teams were great. They made everybody happy and want to go to work and do their best job. These are some of the people in a web team from my limited experience, and it's in no particular order. Where I'm interning at the moment, there's like this fun and social atmosphere, and the positivity in the team is also able to sort of twist and coil its way through the team, but in a way that provides a safe and relaxing environment to work in. I think there are loads of little things that companies can do to boost positivity and staff satisfaction. And some big companies have documented how they're doing this. Etsy is one example. Who's heard of Etsy? Yeah. They document tons of stuff about this on their website. It's great. So go there if you want to read it. One thing they do among many is something called blameless postmortems, where they get a small team together and focus on how mistakes were made rather than who made them. I think the tech and the tools that you use in your team are really, really important. But I also think that getting teams to work well together is then often sort of forgotten or put aside. But having empathy for your team gets you something for free. Who likes free stuff? Yeah. It feels good to be kind to other people, and it helps you get better at considering your own thoughts and feelings. So last, but certainly not least, is having empathy for yourself. I'm guessing that everyone here has emotions, maybe. Thinking of others' needs can be emotionally draining in both psychology and web development. It's kind of the nature of the job. In psychology, I was always reminded of my work-life balance, often during formal supervision meetings. And throughout the years, I used this supervision a hell of a lot, and it helped me bring the balance back. From what I've seen, I don't think supervision is quite so seen as with as much importance in web development, even though web development can be equally draining. Developers have to think of client and user needs, the tools they need to use, they have to think of their team, and this is on top of all the design and development work that actually has to be done. I think having empathy for yourself allows you to reflect as well, so to see things more objectively, to learn about yourself and to learn what you need to be happy and feel good enough to go out and get that. Airbnb is another company that documents the great stuff they're doing for teams and around work-life balance. And they also advocate that it is good to learn from other people. So I love learning, and I always have. While studying psychology, I had to learn about loads of topics from loads of sources. The goal for students is to get like a unique toolbox of ideas and practices by the end, and graduates leave knowing what works best and how they work best. It comes back to empathy again, like we're all people, and how we feel about the work that we do matters and ultimately affects the users. In the past 1.5 years, I've learned from as many sources as possible. Even a year ago, I had no idea what HTTP or cookies were, or what a CMS or a framework was. I do now. I decided to approach web development in the same way as I approached psychology, which was to build up a toolbox of ideas and practices. It's not always easy to keep up with because it's all on my own steam, but putting the effort into it always feels good. While I was doing this, I came to realize that the web is so new and still growing and evolving that there are lots of ideas about it, and a lot of these are very opinionated. I don't think it's a secret. Developers are opinionated, and it might cause a lot of flame wars, but I think opinions are really fantastic. I love them. In psychology, you might see opinions as sort of forming nodes to form like a strong, smart neural network. And in tech, you might see them as like data points. And some of you might have heard that big data helps you to form accurate predictions. I think gathering opinions might be the same. It might help us to predict what is best for the web. I'll tell you a little story. Recently, I have been feeling quite demotivated again, and I decided to look back at what sort of motivated me right at the beginning in learning web development. And I realized it was actually hearing these opinions by reading blog posts and watching videos. The other day, I sat down and read just a few blog posts, and after that, I already felt energized and motivated again. So I think we can all get down about our jobs, and realizing what sparks your enthusiasm for the work is a really great thing, because you can always revisit what sparked it. One more great thing about opinions: the more I talk to and learn from people, the more I hear that even the smartest developers that I've either met or heard of, they all suffer from imposter syndrome. And the more I hear this, the more I'm reassured that it's a normal thing, and it helps me to rise above it and be happy with what I'm doing. What also always made me motivated to learn in psychology were my fantastic teachers who loved what they did and went above and beyond for students. And I've been really, really fortunate to meet loads of fantastic web development teachers and mentors in Brighton and beyond who are kind and encouraging and lift me up when I'm feeling discouraged, and above all, they're really, really super excited about what they do. They give me brutal but honest feedback, and they help me feel comfortable navigating the wild world of the web and make me more confident to venture out into it and to get experiences. I'm not new to the power of experiences. They're really celebrated in psychology because they're what gets students doing stuff in the real world, and combining the theory with the practice is like the fork in the road to find out what real work is actually like. They've given me so much value over the years that to this day I will still often choose them over sleep. Experiences also help you meet wonderful people, like some of my friends here in Germany. In 1.5 years, I have been to Code Bar, been to JavaScript meetups, UX meetups, public speaking clubs and workshops, writing workshops, trying to remember what's on these slides, conferences, and dedicated web camps. And I've volunteered, been mentored, begun an internship, become an organizer at Code Bar, and I'm here speaking to you today. And I've done none of that a 1.5 years ago. I've learned so much doing that, and I love advocating for experiences, and I'm really, really happy when others do the same. This is Rachel Nabas. She used to be a cartoonist and is now a web developer. Here she's urging people to do things outside of work and to get experiences. This is Matthias Otz, a user experience designer who I met in Germany, and he wrote about leaving the beaten track, like your comfort zone, and seeking experiences. This is Michael Gunner, who I met in Brighton, a Code Bar. He's a front-end developer, and he told me to do more than WordPress development. So he was going out and seeking experiences, and he explained that he's already plugged gaps in his knowledge and been inspired to start new projects. This is probably my favorite slide. A Code Bar student who'd been regularly attending for a few months sort of came up to me on one of the meetups and happily explained that she had confidence by coming to Code Bar, and it was a place that she could work and focus much better than she could do at home. And I think this is such a great experience for her to have. This is Travis Nielsen, who you can find on YouTube. Some of you may have seen him on there. He's got this great video called Advice and Crap for Young Creators, which I really highly recommend. In it, he kind of encapsulates this message that everything you do, everything you learn and experience kind of circles around to what you do as a creative person. And one more. This is Corey House. He's an established web developer. He's explaining that by going to conferences, he gets exposed to more opinions, and it doesn't necessarily teach him anything specific, but it helps him learn what to learn and kind of guides him to make better decisions and take an active part in steering the fast-moving train of the web. Everything I've just talked about is what helps to inspire me to be a great developer. and to be excited about what I do. But I'm only one person, and psychology is only one field. And remember, anyone can be a developer. Just a few that I've met who have transitioned into web development have been lawyers, marine biologists, musicians, and more. I asked one of the musicians, a pianist, about his transition into web development, and asked him whether he thinks music has influenced his approach to web development. I was told a lot. Through music, he's aware of the creative aspect of development, that you don't write code for computers, but for humans to understand. And I want to read one of my favorite quotes that he wrote. Music is an area that fosters creativity, especially for communicating with people. When performing or composing, you can't just play notes. You have to effectively communicate emotions and messages through the medium of music. And it's beautiful because it transcends all languages and requires a ton of creativity. He made loads of other really great points and is happy for me to share those with anybody who'd like to read them. So come and find me afterwards and I can give you that. The web train is traveling really fast and anybody can come along for the ride. And I think this can sometimes make it an uncertain and stressful environment. But I think if we can draw from what we know and from what others know, whether we're developers or designers or UXers or project managers or whatever else, then we can keep our motivation, enthusiasm, and inspiration strong. And I think the web would really benefit from this. Thank you.